My name is Steve Fleming. I'm a Professor of Cognitive Neuroscience and run a lab studying consciousness and metacognition. Welcome to my exp. Metacognition literally means cognition about cognition, or thinking about our own thinking. But in our research, it's a broader topic than that. It refers to reflection on our own mental states, our own perceptions, our memories, our decisions. So for instance, we can introspect about whether a memory of last year's birthday party that we had is actually real, or perhaps we've just imagined it. We can reflect on whether we've made a good or bad decision. And these are all aspects of metacognition enabling us to self-assess our own mental processes. One question we have is what's happening in the brain when we self-reflect? And for a long time, we've been interested in the role of the prefrontal cortex in the human brain, the area of the brain right towards the front of the head. And it's this region that, when it's damaged, can often lead to problems with self-awareness, with insight into changes in cognition or memory, for instance. And we've been interested in exploring, using brain imaging techniques like functional MRI, what contribution the different subregions of the prefrontal cortex make to this capacity to judge ourselves. So the tasks that we've developed to study metacognition using brain imaging involve people making simple judgments about what they see on a computer screen, and then evaluating how confident they feel in making those judgments. And we can quantify how good your metacognition is by the extent to which your confidence is tracking your underlying performance. And what we find is that people who have better metacognition have subtle differences in the function and the structure of particular circuits in the prefrontal cortex. And brain activity in these networks is linked to the formation of this metacognitive judgment. It predicts how confident you will feel in individual decisions or actions that you make. So we think that this research can start explaining why, if you have damage to these networks, then that's why you might have problems with self-awareness, because you're damaging the brain circuits that are creating this model of how you are performing in a particular task. Metacognition, we think, plays an outsized role in how we make decisions and how we navigate our daily life, because it allows us to form estimates of how much capacity we have, how much skill we have in particular areas of endeavor. So one nice example comes from the world of sports, and extreme sports in particular, like free diving. People have to estimate very precisely what they will be capable of. So free divers need to dive without any oxygen to as deep as they can go and then return to the surface. And it's a balance between being able to push the limits of what you are capable of and not overstepping them, because that can lead to injury or even death. And so in cases like this, you need to have a really precise estimate of your own capacity. And no one tells you that from the outside. This is something you need to find out and explore yourself. So areas of sport and elite performance are nice cases in which this metacognitive aspect of performance becomes exposed. The types of computational model we build in our lab are algorithmic models. They're trying to explain aspects of people's behavior. So we can build models that characterize people's metacognitive judgments. And these are models that simulate probabilities of success on various tasks. And we try and derive equations that predict how people will rate their own confidence in those same tasks. And we think there's a deep connection between representing a probability of success and how you evaluate your confidence. The fluctuations in your performance inform the model you have of yourself. This approach is part of a broader class of models known as predictive processing accounts. And the predictive processing framework suggests that what the brain is trying to do is build a model of the outside world, actually in a similar way to which we as scientists are trying to build a model of how the brain itself is working. And in the case of humans, one aspect of that model of the outside world includes ourselves. It includes our own decisions, our own actions. And so we think one powerful approach for modeling metacognition is to develop a predictive processing account that includes ourselves in the model. It includes our own actions and our own decisions in that model. And that can provide a really powerful and flexible account of how people form confidence in their perceptions, in their memories, in their decisions, in anything really that the brain is set up to do. We can also take this up to a metacognitive level and study how people can self-assess those brain processes. Our lab and other labs around the world have found links between mental health symptoms such as anxiety, depression, compulsivity, and changes in how we see ourselves, changes in these metacognitive processes. So for instance, people who have more anxiety and depression symptoms will tend to be underconfident about their own skills and abilities. And this can be pernicious because it can then lead you to not pursue new opportunities, even if you are perfectly well qualified to take on a new role at work or to join a new sports team. You might not feel as though you have the skill, have the ability to pursue those avenues. And so these distortions in how we evaluate our own skills, our own abilities, can then lead to consequences in the actions and decisions we take. One area we're very interested in is the promise of developing new treatments, new interventions to improve or reshape metacognition in beneficial ways. There is a growing line of research looking at the benefits of meditation for self-evaluation. Work done in my lab has also shown promise of training, of actually coaching people to realize when their self-assessments are distorted or not in line with the reality of their performance. And very recently, we've developed computational models to show that in cases of anxiety and depression, the reason people might hold these distorted views of themselves in terms of having systematic underconfidence in their skills and abilities could be due to a failure in how they learn about their own performance. So it's not that we're getting told how well we're doing in various aspects of our lives. We have to infer that from various cues. And we found in studies we've conducted recently that those distorted self-assessments might have their root in distortions in learning, how metacognition updates over time. Like many psychologists, I am worried about the consequences of misinformation for how people form beliefs about the world. Now, our research on metacognition suggests that an important component of how we form beliefs is the capacity to reflect on whether we have an accurate belief or not. And if we realize that perhaps the way we're seeing a problem or an issue is distorted or misinformed, then that's a prompt, that's an internal signal that we can use to go out to seek out corrective information or to ask others for their opinion and so on. So we think that metacognitive aspect is important for people resisting polarization and misinformation. And one reason why we think there's a linkage there is that in our work in the lab, we've shown that the extent to which people hold rigid and dogmatic beliefs about real-world issues such as politics can be predicted by the profile of their metacognitive judgments on simple laboratory tasks. So people who are more willing to admit mistakes or errors in laboratory tasks are also those people who tend to have less rigid or dogmatic views about political issues. So we think there's some general component of metacognition that contributes to enabling people to hold more moderate views about the world.